Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survivor Review. Today we'll be talking about Episode 10, the season finale of Season 2 of Ash vs. Evil Dead, titled Second Coming. Now I'm sad to say that this episode is kind of a mess. I was honestly really let down by the season finale. It has elements that I like, and there's a lot of great scenes in here, a lot of fun moments. But overall, I felt they really dropped the ball on what they could have done with this idea. The idea of them going back in time to before the first Evil Dead just did not pay off. And there's a lot of stuff that didn't make any sense. And stuff that it just didn't work. I'm really kind of disappointed. So the episode begins where the last one left off, with Ash stuck in the cellar fighting off Henrietta. And that scene is fun. It's really good. It's really entertaining. Henrietta's head even morphs into that cool creature face that she did in Evil Dead 2, except this time with modern CGI. And I thought that was really cool. I like seeing that. Really cool seeing that compared to the stop motion from Evil Dead 2. So that's all good. That scene was awesome. I actually really liked that. And then Ruby and Kelly get to the cabin and come across 80s Ruby, who happens to be in the cabin with the book and the dagger. And modern Ruby tries to convince her to, not follow Ball and just how everything's just going to go wrong. She doesn't take that kindly, ends up stabbing Ruby, and in the end ends up killing Ruby, which is pretty sad. Then Ash and Kelly get away and run away from all that, and it turns out everything is good. It turns out they changed the past, because Ash ends up getting his hand back, and Pablo ends up being alive. So everything seems all good and well. They drive off to trying to go back home until we find out that Pablo isn't really Pablo, it's actually Ball in his skin, because when Pablo killed him, he actually went into Pablo. When all the black ooze blood, whatever you want to call it, is like spraying everywhere, that was actually Ball going into Pablo. So now Ash and Kelly are stuck in the cabin while Ball and 80s Ruby try to take over the world, basically. And that's where my problems with this episode begins. Now, I know Ash has had some crazy schemes in the past that aren't the smartest, like just taking Ruby's deal at the end of the first season and stuff like that. But his idea to just fight Ball man on man with him without his supernatural powers, I don't know, it just seemed stupid. And then Ball agrees to it, and then of course he didn't follow through on the deal. He started using supernatural powers. Of course he would. I don't know, I just thought that was dumb. It's like, oh, it all boils down to the hero and the villain in a fist fight. And it seemed like a really stupid idea for Ash to come up with, and I wasn't too big on that. There were elements of that fight scene I liked, when Ball was turning into Chet, and then Chet cuts off his new hand. That was funny. And even you finally get to see his dad again, who we haven't seen since he died in the third episode. So that was cool. So I liked those little elements to it, but I just thought the idea of that fight scene, of like Ash coming up with the idea to fight him man on man, and totally believing that Ball would stay true to his word and not use his supernatural powers, was kind of like, really? What? Okay. And then, of course, they end up defeating Ball, which I do like that. I like the way Ash actually distracts him and then uses his own finger to cut him in half. I thought that was cool. That was all fine. And then they save the day. They destroy the cabin. They burn it down, killing Ball and 80s Ruby. And I liked the effects when they killed Ball. And his skin came off, and it was just like the muscles underneath, and everything was on fire. It was very cinematic and very cool looking. I like that. And then we get to the epilogue of the episode, which just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So after the house burns down, Pablo comes back up. He's alive. That's all good and well. And then all of a sudden we cut to this big rally in the town. Everybody cheering like the Ash is a hero. And you're like, well, wait, what? Is this still the 80s? What's going on? And then Ash goes to speak about how, oh yeah, nobody in the town believed me at first and everything. So like, okay, so it's modern day, so they somehow found a way to get back to the future. They didn't really show that. Like, they hint at it that Pablo, since he basically had the book inside of him, he still has some of that in him, and he's able to read the time travel passage to get that back home. But you never see it, it's just implied. And so now they're in the present, but in the present where the townspeople seem to know what happened, in this whole season, despite it not having happened, because he destroyed the cabin. So the events of everything in the Evil Dead universe never happened. So how do the townspeople know who he is, know that he was considered a murderer, a psychopath, then everybody started to believe him? It makes no sense. And then he sees the ghosts of his dad, Cheryl, and Chet, which is a really weird, like, Return of the Jedi moment of them standing there. I think that's what they were going for. It was really weird, kind of silly, but okay. But why are they dead? So, what happened? Where are they in the timeline? This makes no sense. And then you see 80s Ruby is there. And it's like, okay, so is this all like an illusion? Is this not real? Because I can see that being it, that like she survived the house burning down. Now she's just messing with Ash and everything. I could see that, but it just doesn't, I don't know, that ending made no sense to me, like, whatsoever. I get where they're going at with an ending with like everything all happy, like everything's all good, you know, nothing can go wrong. But of course, 80s Ruby is there, so things are gonna go wrong. But I don't understand that ending whatsoever. It made no sense. Then you get the post-credit scene where the book is lying on the ground outside the cabin and somebody finds it. Who found it? I don't know. We'll have to see. So yeah, I was kind of underwhelmed with this one. Again, it did take advantage of the whole time travel aspect that they had in the last episode. When I heard they were going back in time to before the first movie, I was like, that's very cool. It's really interesting to explore some stuff that actually did happen before the first movie, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. Like, time travel, when you're not trying to take it super seriously, can be a lot of fun. It can be really crazy and really wild. So, like, that with the Evil Dead tone and everything would have been awesome and hilarious. I was expecting stuff with, like, a young Ash in the cabin and stuff like that, like him interacting with his young self or trying to hide from his younger self, like Back to the Future, and like that would have been fun. There's none of that, and I'm really disappointed in that. There's stuff that was built up towards that doesn't get paid off, like what was Ash's dad trying to tell him at the end of episode 3 when he died. They tease you because you see Ball like in disguise as his dad. He's about to like say like, no, I need to tell you something that's really important, and then of course he fights them, and so you never find it out. So they tease you there, and then don't get anything. So that never find out. And I guess they're holding that off for another season or so. That was really disappointing. I did just read right before filming this video that the ending or the whole like last half of the season finale was changed at the last minute. And I read up online what the original idea was. The producer who left the show was talking about the original idea for the ending and talking about how they played a lot more with the time travel aspect, and it honestly sounds a lot better. This seems like a mess that was thrown together at the last minute. That's what it feels like. It feels like they didn't really know what they were doing exactly. Nothing seemed to really pay off much that they've been building towards this entire season. It was interesting seeing Ruby die, though. Even though like we have another Ruby now, we have the 80s Ruby to deal with. But the actual like Ruby that we've come to care about in this entire season, who became an actual good guy and stuff, dying was pretty sad. Although that led to the funniest moment in the episode where they're standing over her body. Yeah, and she just sits there, just kind of becomes still. And Ash goes to close her eyes and she goes, "What are you doing? I'm not dead yet." That part is hilarious. I love that moment. It's a great play on that. That was great. I hope next season is just able to kind of fix this up and kind of make it make more sense and just flow about it, because this ending was weird and didn't really work for me. So yeah, that's basically the season finale of season 2. That's it for now until next October. Kind of sucks. Overall, I really enjoyed this season. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I just like last season, just entertaining as hell and just so much fun. I had issues with it throughout. I like that it tried to tell more of a story compared to last season that was just, we have to go to the cabin to destroy the book. And that was it. This tried to have more to the story, and I really appreciate that. Was a little clunky in some spots, didn't work perfectly, but I like that. I like the more focus on stories. I like characters going in different directions, like Ruby becoming a good guy, basically. And Pablo and Kelly grew as the season progressed. I like that. And I do like how this season was pretty much all practical effects. There's a little bit of CGI here and there sprinkled throughout, you know. But it wasn't like last season. Because last season had a lot of CGI effects that didn't work, and a lot of people didn't like that, including myself, like who complained about it. And I feel like they actually listened to those complaints, and they scaled back on the CGI blood splatter and CGI effects, because I can't really think of any bad CGI moment that really stuck out to me this season. Though I can still think of a few that stuck out from last season. So props on them for listening to the fans and fixing that up. I hope they listen to the fans for next season. I did think there was a little too much toilet humor in the season. I'm okay with that scene in the morgue in episode 2. I'm okay with that because it was just so ridiculous that I'm fine. But I felt this did go a little too lowbrow at times. Like the scene when he's finding Henrietta and the breast milk is squirting onto his face. That I felt was like, yeah, it's a little juvenile and not exactly in the Evil Dead style. Like, yeah, Evil Dead humor can be juvenile because they always use Three Stooges style humor, but not to it's not to toilet humor levels of juvenile. So I hope they kind of fix that, scale back on the juvenile stuff, make it a bit more horror. Because there were a lot of good horror elements throughout the season, but it was heavily rooted in comedy, and I think they should scale back a bit on the comedy, focus a little bit more on horror, still have a major storyline, still have a more complex storyline, but just find a way to focus on it better and not get caught up in extra little subplots like the whole episode with Ash in the asylum. Try not to get caught up on that, and I think you'd have a perfect season. I mean, the season was more than good. I enjoyed the hell out of it every week watching it. There's some aspects of every episode that I really enjoyed. I like adding on to the mythology, I like adding on to Ash's family, and also seeing his dad. I like all that. Just overall, a very solid season that you can use some improvements. So yeah, that's my look at Season 2 of Ash vs. Evil Dead, talking about every episode. A lot of fun doing that. I love talking about this show. I love talking about Evil Dead in general because I just freaking love it. It's great. And I cannot wait for Season 3. So, until then, I'll talk to you guys later.